Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Physician's Mind podcast. I'm Curtis Wilkerson, a medical student, and today we're joined by Dr. Nathan Fitton. He's an associate professor of orthopedics at Michigan State University, a team physician for MSU Athletics, and a nationally recognized expert in osteopathic manipulative treatment. Beyond the clinic, he's shaping the future of medicine as Chief Medical Information Officer, building the gap between cutting-edge technology and hands-on patient care. Dr. Fitton's story is one of grit, discipline, and impact, from taking care of elite athletes to training the next generation of physicians. This conversation will be more than about just sports medicine. It's going to be about what it takes to lead, innovate, and push the boundaries of modern osteopathic medical practice. Dr. Fitton, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate the kind introduction there and appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk with you.
Absolutely, sir. Let's get right into it here. You have built a career as a physician, a professor, team doctor, and a healthcare leader. Can you take us back to when it all started? What was it that drew you into medicine, and what kept you moving forward even when the road was tough?
That's a great question. And as my years go farther and farther out for medical school, I get this question from time to time. And as I reflect back, it's been quite a journey. And really what pointed me in this direction, though, was just curiosity. I've always been fascinated with the human body, how it works, the immune system, the muscles, kind of how it all goes. And so it was that curiosity that was the foundation that drew me into trying to better understand how we work and how things come together. And then as I began to go through undergrad and seeing the potentials here, it was really the combination of science and service. I mean, the idea that I could use my knowledge and understanding to directly impact someone's life was really, really exciting for me. I mean, to have the opportunity to be the individual that someone turns to in their moment of vulnerability, and to be able to point them in a positive direction to get them feeling better was really something that I was very excited about. And so I think it was really that combination of enhancing one of my passions, learning about the human body, and then also being able to expand that into a realm of service and helping others and getting people to back to a point where they're feeling well again.
Awesome, awesome. And every successful doctor has moments of doubt or challenge along the way. What were some of the biggest hurdles in your journey, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we all, when you look and you see people that are accomplished, and I have many peers of my own that I'm in awe of what they do and what they've accomplished, and I hope that others see some of the things that I've done in that light. But I think what's most important is that we're all human, right? We learn early in medical school that the textbook to err is human is an understanding that what medicine is. And so I would really say, some of the biggest early hurdles for me were self-doubts, right? I mean, what could I cut it? Did I have the ability to survive medical school and medicine? And it has a way of humbling you. And even 10 years into my practice, I see things that I have to look up again to refresh my memory on or consult peers to get some additional assistance because when you're in it, you're always thinking, I need to do more. I need to do more. And I think that drive is what helps individuals become great doctors because they don't become complacent. They understand that their medical knowledge needs to be continually sharpened and honed over the years. And that what you learn in medical school, year one, day one, may change and evolve, and you need to do so with that. And I think with those early feelings of like, do this and am I going to make it? I think for those of you that are in those thoughts at this point in time, I want you to understand that growth is incremental. You don't start as a first year medical student with a full understanding of everything you need. Rather, it's a journey and it's a process to get there. And being perfect isn't what makes a great doctor, isn't what makes a great leader. Just showing up, working hard with the desire to continue to learn, that's really what shapes people to be the kind of provider that people want to see and the kind of individual that they want to lead them forward. And I think, as you are experiencing some of those early dates in your careers of, well, I'm in the middle of this, passing classes and taking boards. And I would implore you to find a mentor who's been through it, who can talk to you, who can give you that little piece of reality like, hey, I struggled on that too, or, oh, that was really hard for me. And give you that understanding that we're all human and we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and it's okay to have some of those challenges as you move through. But having that mentorship can be really helpful and not just internalizing that, oh my gosh, am I really supposed to be here? Like, yes, you are because you care care and you want to help people, and finding those around you that can help foster that is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Iron sharpens iron. You mentioned in the beginning how the intersection of service and science is kind of what motivated you. And then when you began, it was a challenge because you faced some self doubt. But over time, you began to realize it's a continual process of improvement, and being surrounded by like minded, driven individuals can be paramount to success. Excellent. Now, sir, before we get into your career accomplishments, let's just start with a little recap of your journey. You've been at Michigan State for med school, for fellowship, and now your career. Can you tell us what that has meant for you in terms of growth, in terms of mentorship, in terms of purpose? What kind of things have you accomplished in that time?
Yeah, I'm from the mid-Michigan area, so I'm from outside of East Lansing, and we grew up Spartans. I mean, through and through. My parents had season basketball tickets at Jennison, which for those of you that aren't familiar, that was before the Breslin. So this would have been back in the 70s and 80s, back when Magic Johnson was playing. And so my parents have been fans their whole lives, and that kind of filled me up as well as I was a kiddo as a Spartan fan. And so I did my undergrad in Ohio, branched out, went as far away as Ohio, and said that was far enough, and came back for medical school. And really, just being in this environment my entire life, I saw the culture, I saw the people, and I saw what it stood for. And I wanted to be here for that. I wanted to experience that. And so that's really what drew me to Michigan State. I mean, certainly its academic prowess and its academic excellence within medical school is remarkable. As someone that got hurt in college, that's how I got introduced to osteopathy. I didn't know. I mean, if you would have asked me when I was a senior in high school, I didn't know there was a difference between MDs and DOs with regards to initials after a name. I just thought people were doctors, and frankly just assumed everybody were MDs because that's what was most ubiquitous at the time. But it was when I got hurt playing college football that I was treated by an orthopedic surgeon who was a DO. And I really was taken aback by his approach. And he asked me, what are your goals? What are your expectations for this recovery process? As opposed to just telling me what the recovery process was. And so it was his approach that really kind of brought forward, like, wait a minute, I'm interested in this. Like he's asking me for input. He wants to understand what my goals are to get back to potentially play this year versus being done for the year. And I just really was astonished by that collaborative approach to it, and understanding that football at that point in my life was a big part of my life. And so he understood that it wasn't just cut and dried to make a decision to pull you out. And so it was really after that that I started to explore what it meant to be a DO and what the foundational principles were, which really comes back to that understanding of the mind, body, and spirit as a unit. And then with medical school, I knew that I wanted to do sports medicine because of that interaction. Sports have always been very important to me. If you ask my wife, she'll tease that the reason I work at Michigan State is because I wasn't athletic enough to play at Michigan State, which is the truth. I wasn't. I played Division III down at Defiance College in Defiance, Ohio, and had a blast with it, but was not at the level these guys are. But nonetheless, I really just wanted to have that opportunity to be involved with sports, and I've just been around teams my entire life, so it felt comfortable. Now, I knew that I didn't want to be an orthopedic surgeon, despite really my entrance into osteopathy being via an orthopedic surgeon. And if you would see the birdhouses I built as a child, you would know you don't want me hammering or nailing anything into you based on that skill set. Trust me. But so really primary care sports medicine fit perfectly. Understanding that I wanted that route and knowing what osteopathy brought forward, and including the hands-on osteopathic manipulative medicine, or OMM. That's what really drew me to want to do that, because I saw that OMT or OMM fits perfectly into sports medicine. I mean, I would argue there may not be a better specialty for OMT than sports medicine. These people are moving, they're getting out of alignment, and this is impacting their ability to function. And so it was really that understanding that's what drew me to Michigan State University. And then when it came to residency, I did my residency at Metro Health Hospital, which is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They have since been purchased by the school down the road. For those of you in Michigan would know that they're maize and blue. I refuse to call them by their new name of University of Michigan Health West, of course, jokingly here. But that's right in my residency, and then came back for fellowship at Michigan State. Again, it was an easy decision for me to be a part of the place that helped shape me into the physician that I am. And I learned from these amazing physicians, and the ability to work alongside them as colleagues was something I just couldn't pass up. I mean, it really deepened my sense of purpose because I've been able to give back to the same place that helped me become who I am. And it's something I've really, really enjoyed. And I think for anyone that's out there, I think there's really something quite powerful about investing in one place that invested in you and then watching it grow forward as you grow with it. And that's really what has become my role here at Michigan State and MSU Healthcare.
Awesome. Yeah, they're a renowned institution. It's a good opportunity to give back to the community and pay it forward. What position were you in college?
So I played quarterback back in the day, and actually that injury that I talked about, I separated my throwing shoulder, and it was a bad enough separation that I really never threw again. So I transitioned to a different position, played the last 2 years in a different position. But yeah, nowadays I get out of breath tying my shoes. But I tell you, back then was a different story. But yeah, it was a great opportunity to play college football, and I really enjoyed it.
Right on. And now you've risen to roles like Chief Medical Information Officer and a team physician at MSU. Can you share with us some of the mindset shifts that have allowed you to step beyond just being a physician, right? Just being a physician, but stepping into leadership and innovative roles like those?
Yeah, I wish I could say I was the big computer nerd back in high school and always been into technology and things like that. I was just with the rest of everyone else, but it wasn't anything special. I didn't have aspirations of necessarily doing that, but I think really what I wanted to do, like I just mentioned, was to give back and to be a part of the success of an institution as opposed to just being a cog in the wheel of the institution. So what I really, when presented with this opportunity, it really just came about. We had an opening as an associate chief medical information officer, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. I didn't really know what that meant. And this would have been back in 2017, even before the pandemic was when things went really virtual. And it was just the opportunity to see how healthcare is impacted and how information moves back and forth between hospitals and health systems and the way that physicians interact with the EHR. And so, as any physician that wants to be more efficient, you need to better understand the EHR. And I felt like, well, there's some things that I understood about our electronic medical record, but I didn't have a great understanding. So I wanted to learn it more thoroughly in order to try and help myself, but also my peers. But there was definitely some angst about stepping away from clinical practice, right? I mean, I had always thought that I was going to go Monday through Friday, taking care of patients and athletes and helping them get better. And now I had an opportunity to step into a role that would, reduce that by about 20% to a more administrative role. And so there was a shift that needed to occur there, but really that shift was about realizing that leadership isn't about leaving medicine behind. It's about amplifying your impact. As a physician, I'm able to help one patient at a time, but in leadership, whether it's health IT or team medicine, you can create systems and cultures that help hundreds, expand the breadth of your impact beyond what you would expect. So, kind of that having that perspective of potentially having a wider impact, that's what gave me the courage to step into that role and outside of my comfort zone of clinical practice. And it's been a great experience. I've taken on numerous projects and been a part of things that I would like to think overall. I guess if you asked the providers here at MSU, has Nate Fitton been a help or a detriment? And trust me, when you're the face of the EHR or it's hard to always be viewed in a positive light. But I do think we've made some meaningful change to help with the quality of life for our providers, but also the delivery of care as well.
Awesome. And then how about your role as a team physician?
Yeah, so the team physician role, I was able to, when I first started with Michigan State in 2017, I came on as team physician for MSU women's basketball and MSU wrestling were my primary teams. And from there, I was able to also cover some of the Olympic sports. But those first few years was a tremendous learning curve and a tremendous learning experience. I give a lot of credit to the initial athletic trainers that I worked with, and there's still two of them are still here at Michigan State, Leanna Haddon and Luann Jefferson. They knew that I was as green as green could be when I came out, but they were there to help give me some mentorship, give me some guidance, and help me through those early tough days again, where that self-doubt comes out. I think that's one of the things that it's okay to be vulnerable as a physician because when you do, you understand your limitations. And as a result, you seek care, you seek guidance. And it's not just first year medical school where you're like, I don't know if I can do this. It comes back multiple times. I mean, those early years of medical school, yes. And then your first year as an intern, when you're walking around wearing the stethoscope in the hospital, making decisions. And then you gain confidence, you get more comfortable. And then I'll tell you, it came back again when I became an attending, right? No longer do you have anyone looking over your shoulder. No longer do you have someone signing off on your charts. And so you become that very independent provider. But at each step of the way, it isn't that you just get past the first hurdle, then it's all easy shine and rainbows, right? After that first hurdle, you climb and then you get to the next one. And then there's some challenges to overcome there. And so definitely those first couple of years as team physician, how do I manage interacting with multiple players and the staff and all those types of things. And so I had great mentors that helped show me the ropes. And from there, I've been now recently taking care of the football team as one of the two primary care sports medicine docs that take care of MSU football. Dr. Jill Michelli is the other one, who's a great peer to have and a colleague. And I think, that's what it comes down to, is surrounding yourself with a team that is just as invested as you are and just as willing to go the extra mile, as well as support each other, because you're going to have to make difficult decisions and difficult calls. And so definitely the role of the team physician has been, it's been fun. Let's be honest, right? You get to be on the sideline. You get to experience the highs and the lows with the team. There's definite challenges that come with it, right? There's having to make difficult decisions, right? We always have to be physicians first and fans second. And so, yes, the game might be on the line. This player might be the most important. But for us, when that opportunity comes to evaluate, keeping that mindset of, my first question is this player safe to play? Not can they play, are they safe to play? And ignoring the potential impact that may have on the current game, season, those types of things. And so it's definitely been, each step of the way have been learning curves and opportunities, but it's been a tremendous experience just based on the culture, the people, really what attracted me to come to MSU in the first place.
And so currently you are with the women's basketball team, men's wrestling, and football, or has it changed since you started?
Yeah. So I had to women's basketball transitioned to another provider just based on time commitment and things like that. There's too much overlap in the fall with football and women's basketball. So I was with women's basketball for 7 years, thoroughly enjoyed it, had a wonderful experience. And then I do remain with wrestling at this point as well.
Awesome. And now in those challenging roles, in order to sustain your success, what are some of the daily habits, disciplines, or guiding principles that have been most important to you?
I think as we matriculate through medical school, as you get into your residency, as you become an attending, you're looking for some of those key traits that help you be successful. And for me, it's been consistency and balance. I try to start each day with some form of resetting, bringing myself back to square one, and then starting to build from there. I try not to allow myself inconsistency, because I feel like that adds to stress and different things like that. And so I'm really trying to be as present as I can be where I am. And so if I'm in the training room or I'm with a patient, they get my full attention. But I think, part of these discussions, and as individuals look to grow and become more involved in their organizations, don't forget, and this is me imploring, but it's also myself as well, that don't forget about your life outside of what you're doing, your medicine. And so I'm fortunate. I have three wonderful kiddos. I have a wife, and that's very important to me as well. And I feel like that balance from work to life is also paramount importance, because if we go back to, the understanding of mind, body, spirit from an osteopathic perspective, if you're the smartest provider, but you're burned out or you're depressed, that's not going to help you be successful. Rather, where you're most likely to be successful is when things are balanced across those realms. And so just as my attention being 100% on my patients, and when I'm in the clinic, when I'm home, I really, really work hard to give it to my family. And so I do my best not to document at home or chart at home. Certainly as a team physician, stuff happens at any time and you got to be readily available, but it's really looking to achieve that balance of your professional, and personal, because I don't think there's only so much between the two. And we've seen people that invest too much in professional and maybe struggle with personal, and vice versa. So trying to find and achieve that balance is really, really important.
Yeah, I think that intentionality is important at every stage, be it medical student, resident, practicing physician. It sounds like intentionality is key. Now, defining excellence, how would you define excellence in medicine? and in life?
I think we all strive for it, right? As a provider, as a team physician, I want to provide the most excellent care. I want to provide the excellent leadership that puts us on the path. And I think what's important to keep in mind is that excellence is not perfection. It's a commitment to continuous improvement and compassionate care. I really think that excellence it falls in alignment, right? It's making sure your values, your work, your relationships are all pointed in that same direction. That excellence, is something that you live in all elements of your life, but also that things remain in line with one another so that you are allowing your strong values for home, for work, as well as integrity to continue to point in that same direction and in a direction that you're proud of at the end of the day.
Certainly, yeah. It's not about a particular point, but it's about the journey toward continuous improvement. Now, give me 30 seconds. I'm going to grab my computer charger. I will be right back. I just
Okay,
got a
no problem.
notification.
Yep.
Okay, back at business. So, Dr. Fitton, now working with elite athletes, what are some of the lessons about resilience, preparation, and performance that you've learned and carried into your own career?
Yeah, I can't get over it. Being in the locker room and seeing these athletes, I mean, they're remarkable at what they do. Their work ethic, their rehab ethic, all the thing you can really see why they are where they are today. And some of those lessons that I think stands out the most is preparation. Athletes don't just show up on the weekend and excel. They excel because they prepare essentially relentlessly. I mean, just nonstop. And I think that having seen that, having experienced that spills over into my experience with medicine, right? When I walk into a patient's room or a meeting, I want to be prepared so that the patient feels heard, they feel valued, that I took the time to prepare for that visit with them, that I'm not just the next person on their schedule that I don't know anything about. Rather, I've took that time to prepare for them. Same thing with leadership and administration, right? As we get into meetings and things like that you take time to prepare because it shows commitment to your craft and commitment to success. And so I think really that preparation has been something that I've really seen the benefits of it. Like we talk about from a medical perspective, we worry about EAPs or emergency action plans. And, you talk about, all right, well, if there's a C-spine injury, we're going to do this. Or if there's a cardiac, we're going to do this. And we've really come down to like, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have practice, experienced plan again and again and again. And that comes down to that preparation so that when called upon, we're ready to do it. And so, seeing that, you can't just assume like, well, no, we'll be okay. If it happens, we'll figure it out. Like, no, you have to prepare, and preparation leads you to having that smooth transition, having that smooth delivery of care that you need to really show and display, because, athletes are in these games and in these practices where serious injury can occur. And if not handled appropriately, can be quite detrimental to the athlete.
And are there any stories from the sidelines that have changed the way you think about perseverance or leadership or anything in medicine?
I'll tell you, one of the first football games I covered was about 3 years ago. And just the sheer speed and chaos and intensity. I mean, I had played college football, but I had played Division III, and I'll still joke that, yeah, we're solid athletes. But when you get out there in front of 80,000 people and you see the speed, strength, and size of these individuals, it almost like shocks you. You're like, oh my goodness. And really for me, it is seeing that chaotic environment or intense environment and really observing where the leaders and who the leaders are on the team, right? And in the middle of all of that, you'll see the calm presence, the steady voice, the one who keeps everyone grounded and focused. That's the person that they turn to in those moments of struggle, or in moments of really needing a improvement or to be pointed in the right direction. Leadership doesn't shout and belittle or point out errors. It inspires by being composed and confident when it matters the most. And so I think really seeing how to display leadership under that scenario has been helpful for me as we continue to deliver care and sometimes those very challenging environments, and understanding that that's a leader that I want to emulate. And so that's why I try and take those characteristics to myself. And the other thing from the sidelines, I mean, I've got lots of great stories of last minute scores and wins and losses, both in a heartbreaking fashion and an elating fashion. But the other thing you see is really, as that medical provider, you're there when that patient maybe has a devastating injury that is going to take them out for weeks to months, and being with them on that journey, and you see their discipline, their patience, and their trust in the process. And it really just shows to me that having that steady and supportive leader guiding them along that way, whether it's the athletic trainer or the coach, that's the other thing that you really want to bring with them. That, when someone's going through a difficult time or going through something hard, you don't want to carry that for them, right? You want to give them what they need: patience, trust, inspiration, because you want to walk beside them and not just carry it for them. So those have been some of the great things that I've seen with Sideline.
Yeah, that's deep and very insightful. I mean, first and foremost, being calm under chaos is a very valuable leadership trait. Being there for people and seeing the resilience of these individuals in moments of extreme challenge, like an injury or a severe loss, and so many interesting experiences that I'm sure you've had on top of that is just incredible. And for some of the students and professionals that are listening now, what are some other parallels that they could draw between the high level athletics and high level medicine?
I think, as I would tell students, and leverage with what you have around you, right? They both require teamwork. They both require preparation, as we've discussed, and the ability to perform under pressure, right? I mean, the athlete that makes the last second free throw or the big shot at the end of the game, but also the provider that makes the uncomfortable decision, but is confident in and decisive in that process as well. Understanding that in both medicine and athletics, stakes are inevitable, right? No quarterback goes out and completes 100% of their passes, or DB makes 100% of tackles. Mistakes are inevitable, but it's how you respond to them, right? That's your success, both as a team and as a provider. And in understanding that, as long as you're carrying that pursuit of improvement, mistakes are part of the process, but they actually help you grow and improve upon that. And so you don't look at mistakes as personal failures and proof that you're inadequate or not able to do the things. I mean, it's cliche, but mistakes are opportunities, right? Mistakes are opportunities to learn and to grow and to not make that same mistake twice. I can, again, personally attest to being a part of patient care and seeing something for the first time, even years into my practice, and maybe not even thinking about that. And then the diagnosis comes out and you're like, oh my goodness, like, all right, yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't know about that. And so now you get that with you. Then the next time you see it, you think about it, and it's ready to be there. And that's what, as a provider, what you want to bring forward is to be able to make those diagnoses earlier and sooner because you've had familiar experiences previously.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you shouldn't fear failure, because more often than not, it provides a valuable opportunity to learn and gives you an opportunity to improve based on what you've learned. Now, balancing your ambition as a physician with family life and general well being, how do you personally balance all that? You mentioned earlier you make time for that. What does that look like for you? How do you successfully manage all of your responsibilities?
Yeah, my family, they humble you. I tell you what, like, they see me on TV or on the sideline or something. They're like, "Yeah, whatever." And you're like, "What? Come on! Like,
Yeah.
that took me like 9 years to achieve." Like, "Yeah, whatever." So your family humbles you, but they keep me grounded, right? I think, a couple things. I try to be intentional with my time with them, and having some non-negotiable time with family. Like, you just have to. Now, as a team physician, like I mentioned, it comes and goes, and I think, for myself, in season, there's interruptions, and that's just a part of being a physician. But then when you're out of season, embracing that time when you can get it, right? Not filling that time with more things, rather viewing, okay, in season, my evening commitments are greater than what they're going to be, but not becoming so comfortable with the 60-hour work week that when spring comes around and football doesn't need me, that I feel obligated to fill those hours back with work and activity and things like that. I mean, ambition's important, right? But if your ambition costs you relationships or even your health. It's not sustainable and it's not worth it. Careers are built over years and they're built with small increment improvements, and it's not going to be a rapid improvement. It's not going to be a rapid succession. Sports medicine pun, right? I mean, they're marathons or a cliche, excuse me. They're marathons. They're not sprints, right? You're not going to get there that quickly. And so I think, that's one of the challenges as medical students. As you go out and you become residents, you'll be working many, many hours, right? And it's kind of silly. They'll have you working 60, 70-hour work weeks. And I know there's work hour restrictions, and I'm not saying that those aren't important, but you'll work all those hours. So then when you get out and you become an attending, working 60 hours doesn't seem so bad because you used to work 70 or 80 hours, right? And it's important to understand that, like, just because that's how it was before doesn't mean that's how it has to be moving forward, and finding that element. And I've talked about my family being very important to me, and that's the case, but other people, they may have other interests or things that are very important to them that aren't a family, and that's okay too. And so whether it's something that helps keep you grounded, whatever it may be, that's what's most important. And that's what you really want to find, and carve out some protected time for that. Because I promise you, it's not worth putting all those hours in and doing all those different things. If at the end of the day, you don't feel fulfilled, you don't find enjoyment in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and something I've struggled with myself, even as a medical student, because it's sometimes like being on a treadmill sprinting. It's hard to slow down that momentum. You get a break and you don't have any real responsibilities. Like, of course, there's always tasks you could get done, there's always something you can work on. But with that downtime, like you mentioned, it can be hard to just accept that you can relax or spend time with family or do whatever, because you want to work, you want to keep doing more, you want to keep improving. And that's a perpetual challenge, I would imagine, in the medical field, that can be a difficult thing to overcome. But like you mentioned, just kind of being intentional and being aware that it doesn't always have to be go, go, go. There's certain seasons, so to speak. Like, there's when you're literally in season, you have certain responsibilities. And then when it's over, you don't. And that's something to just accept. And it's very good analogy using the marathon, because there's not much you can do in the immediate short term to guarantee success, but rather it's about just consistency over a long period of time. Fantastic, fantastic advice there. Is there a single most important decision or collection of decisions that has put you on the path to where you are today? Because you've succeeded, like you mentioned, took you 9 years to get here. Is there any big decisions that have landed you where you are?
I think that as young individuals are setting forward into their career, setting forth into their career, what I would tell you is you can have a true north. You can have a north star that is your mountain in the distance. When I want to do this, I want to eventually be a part of this. I want to eventually contribute to this. Well, you're not going to get there without passing numerous mileposts along the way. And so for me, I knew that I wanted to be on the sideline of sports, and football has been great, but I tell you what, I enjoyed just as much women's basketball, wrestling, and the other sports I cover. They're all fantastic in their own way. So, but being a sideline provider, that's what I wanted. That was my ultimate goal. But I think along the journey for myself, just doing my best to stay open to opportunities that I wasn't planning for, as opposed to just putting the blinders on and saying, that's what I want to do, that's where I want to go. Having that open mindedness to stay, if something comes along, to consider it. And I've had things that have come along and I've been like, I don't think that speaks to me. And I've had other things that I'm like, wow, I think I'd be really interested in that. And that's the same thing like with medical informatics. Like I hadn't thought about that. I mean, shoot, now you can do a residency in medical informatics. You can get certification in medical informatics. I mean, it's a big world that's out there. I didn't know that. I hadn't pursued it. But when that opportunity came up, it was to do something a little bit different throughout my work week. So I wasn't doing the same thing. And when you think of a sports medicine doc and they're like, well, what else do you think he does? Like, chief medical information officer doesn't jump to the top of the list, right? Like, you don't always see those two go hand in hand, but I've really enjoyed, I'd found meaning in both worlds. I've felt like I've done my best to be a bridge between clinical practice and administration. I felt like I've done some positive things to help with, emergency action plan development, some care of student athletes. And so I feel in both realms, I hope that I've been able to bring forward positive experiences and better delivery systems of care. And so I think it was just for myself, it was remaining open minded while keeping an opportunity with the site at the end of the line, but also understanding along the way there may be some additional opportunities and considering those and embracing when you found it to be appropriate.
Yeah, and I think most medical students can relate to the idea of having that true north that they're striving for. But with that mentality comes the big gap between where you are now and where you want to be. So, my first question in that regard to you is, have you experienced simply enduring tasks that you didn't want to do but knew you had to do to get to where you wanted to go? And do you have any advice on enjoying the moment along the journey and reconciling the large gap that is really honestly inevitable and necessary? So, yeah, I mean, have you endured just tasks that you know were necessary, didn't want to do? And how did you reconcile the large gap when you were younger?
Yeah, those days of year one intern year where you've got four pagers on your belt and they're all beeping and you're trying to figure out who's calling you to go where. And so I, definitely some of those early experiences where working in the hospital, I my background, like I mentioned, family medicine and then to sports medicine as a fellowship. I knew the hospital was not the area where I wanted to primarily deliver care. I enjoyed the outpatient setting and I knew that, but I knew that that was a part of the process. And I think, along many steps of the journey, there are difficult challenges that you're going to have to overcome, as well as understand that they provide meaning and they provide foundation, right? I mean, man, first year med school, it's a doozy. It is. But when you are asked by a patient, like, how does the flu vaccine work? Or how does the flu virus do what it does? You've got that foundational knowledge to be able to talk to them about that. And same thing with my time in the hospital, understanding what sick really looks like, because I have seen what sick people look like. And so having that ability when you're in the outpatient to look at someone and be like, man, I tell you, like, I'm not comfortable with this because I've seen previous experiences with that. And so, understanding that there are times in our careers when you're going to have to go through the drudges of learning something, experiencing something that you might not enjoy, but know that it's all a part of building that foundation that will help you become who you are in the long term because of those learned experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, embracing every moment along the journey is something, trying to extract the value of it, even though it may not seem obvious at the time. Understanding and I think gratitude plays a big role too. I know personally, and I'm sure in your life and many others as well. Like I walk into the doors of the med school every day, and I just remember I worked many years to get here, and this is really a tremendous blessing. Like I personally, I feel no reason to complain about anything, despite any massive workload or lost sleep, whatever it may be. I'm like every moment that I get to study medicine, to understand these things, is a tremendous blessing, and I think gratitude ties into any challenge that can be overcome along the journey. So thank you for sharing some of that. I'm sure that'll be relatable to some of our listeners. And on the topic of advice, if you could speak directly to a med student or any young professional who's listening right now, what is one thing you would tell them about building a successful and fulfilling career?
Think as kiddos get out and start moving through intern year, residency, fellowship, I would tell you don't chase titles, chase the impact. If you focus on where you can add value, where you can serve, the titles, the recognition, that stuff will follow. That'll find you because people will recognize what you're doing. But if your only focus is on the title or climbing the ladder, when you get to the top, it's going to feel empty because the investment wasn't there all the way through. And so I think that the biggest piece of advice is, looking at opportunities and seeing how you can fulfill what you are passionate about, and then the rest will follow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's how do you climb the mountain one step at a time? It's not about reaching the top, but enjoying the journey, most definitely. Now, what legacy would you hope to leave for your patients, students, and the athletes you've cared for? What do you want Dr. Fitton to be known for?
Well, hopefully more than just bad dad jokes, but that may be it. That may be it. But no, I think, there's a great video put out by the Cleveland Clinic. And it's essentially on walking. You don't know what other people are going through. It's built on empathy, right? And understanding that you could walk past someone in the hallway that just got the worst news of their life, or you could walk past someone in the hallway that just got the best news of your life. But trying to determine whose is which, you just won't. It's just not possible. And so the best thing you can do is treat everyone with empathy, how you would want to be treated. And so I would really hope that someday when people look back or talk about myself and the care, and it would be someone that they said cared deeply about his patients and students and athletes, and was empathetic towards them and towards their challenges. And, that they came to see myself and felt heard and supported in their endeavors, and was also at the same time pushed to achieve their full potential. Because, I think that it's, for me, a goal would be to see someone that I worked with go forward and do things that I could never do. Right. But knowing that I was a part of their process would be something I'd be grateful for.
Have you ever struggled with empathy?
What's that?
Have you ever struggled with empathy?
So yes, I think, we teach medical students and we teach residents and fellows like empathy, empathy, empathy. And there are times where it's hard to display empathy. Maybe someone has said something to you that's upsetting. Maybe someone has, not listened to what the care you're providing, or provided, said something negative about you to other staff or things like that. And it can be hard, but it goes back to, understanding that everyone's going through something, including yourself as a provider. But I don't know what the patient's going through all the time. And so sometimes maybe it's, I need to ask different questions next time to try and help them more, or I need to present things differently so that they're able to convey to me what their current challenges are. And so I think that, yes, your late shifts, your long nights, and the patient comes in and they've been in there a couple times. And, I think that there is opportunities to become hardened and to lose that approach and that empathy. But moments come where something rattles you, something makes you realize that you need to carry that forward with an approach to people that you don't know what they're going through. And your job is to simply help them in this moment of vulnerability, and to take them seriously, to not think that, somebody's got a nefarious reason or something like that. Because I've seen when you do that, that's when mistakes happen. That's when things are missed, when patients aren't taken seriously. That's when medical errors can happen, and that's when bad outcomes can be. And then that's, ultimately, as a provider, you're trying to deliver care that doesn't result in bad outcomes, that results in positive outcomes, that patients are getting better. And so I feel that empathy it's at the root of that success, because without empathy, you're not going to be able to, or it's going to be difficult to listen to the patient, to engage with the patient. And if you don't do those things, it's very easy to miss things, to not hear certain elements, and to disregard some of those elements. And then the next thing could potentially have a bad outcome, which is heartbreaking on all fronts.
Right. Right. Listening and empathy, some things that are very important for physicians. A mentor of mine told me, no matter what's going on in your life, as soon as you step into that room or cross into the OR or whatever it is, it's all gone. You're there, you're for the patient, and you're listening and you're being empathetic. That's the key. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Fitton. Thank you for being vulnerable there and sharing that that is real probably among all medical professionals, to be honest. So in closing, sir, couple questions for you. First and foremost, if you had to recommend a book for the listeners to read, what would you recommend?
Ooh, there was a book that I read many years ago called Mountains Beyond Mountains, which is a tremendous read that talks about a medical provider who would hike miles and miles and miles to remote areas to deliver care. Not because it was the most, high volume, high value, but because without that provider, patients wouldn't get the care. And I think for me, that was a great, inspiring start to my medical career, to understanding that it's all about going above and beyond to help the patient. And it was a wonderful read, and something that I really enjoyed. And I think that was instrumental in kind of how I began to frame my thoughts and care that I provided.
Awesome, sir. All right. Well, it's been a great conversation. Can you share with us what's next for you, and where can listeners learn more about you and your work, and where can they connect with you?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, as we move forward, this time next Friday, we'll be getting ready for our opening kickoff week against Western Michigan here at Michigan State University. So the next few weeks will be a busy time for myself and the team here, the whole medical staff, as we continue to care for student athletes. And then also from a MSU healthcare Chief Medical Information Officer, I hope to continue to foster innovation and improvements to care. You are probably experiencing. I mean, artificial intelligence is changing the game. And so from a medical informatics perspective, it is night and day different in the last 2 years from what it was the previous 2 years to that from capability. And so I hope to continue to be a place where innovation occurs here at Michigan State as opposed to where status quo is maintained. So hopefully we continue to push the envelope, and I would welcome any thoughts, questions, things like that. You can find me at Michigan State University's healthcare website for sports medicine, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. And so any of those types of things, happy to connect with students and colleagues and interested in health innovation and sports medicine.
All right, folks, we have been listening to the Physician's Mind podcast with Dr. Nathan Fitton. Sir, thanks again for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.